Hello guys and gals, and welcome to another episode of Unique Items. Today we're going to be looking at one of the older unique items that has actually been changed pretty significantly, and that is Bloodless Scream. So Bloodless Scream has undergone some pretty crazy changes over the past couple patches, and it's really kind of a completely different item from what it was before. Let's talk about it together, and let's see if we can, learn a little bit. Now, Bloodless Scream does have a really high chance of dropping from Varshan, the new boss that you can get access to. So if you are in possession of some gurgling heads, some malignant hearts, some trembling hands, or some blackened femurs, you can actually summon Varshan, and Varshan has a much higher percent chance to drop the Bloodless Scream now than you could potentially have gotten before they added Varshan into the game. I've actually seen quite a few drop from Varshan, and this is the best one that I've found so far. It does have some pretty nice stats, and let's go over them together. First off, it has a pretty decent amount of intelligence, which rolls between 114 and 156. It has a really nice amount of darkness skill damage, which is 31.5 to 52.5%. And it also has damage to chilled enemies, which is 21% to 42%. In addition, it also has a massive amount of cold resistance, which was completely useless before, but now is actually really freaking awesome. As you can clearly see by my resistances being 26.5 on cold, when I add on the Bloodless Scream, I am now capped on cold resistance, which is freaking amazing. I actually really like that because it has allowed me to basically ignore cold resistance in anything that I'm trying to add, for equipment. So if I have, say, fire resistance or poison resistance on my ring, as well as, like rubies and emeralds and things like that in my equipment, helps me out a ton. Now, the special effect of Bloodless Scream has been changed too, and this has been changed from the old, I think it was like 40% chill to 100% chill. So your darkness skills chill enemies for up to 100%, dealing 50%, and deal 50 times increased damage to frozen enemies. It is a lucky hit as well, so... Actually, no, it's sorry, the lucky hit portion is the second portion. So your darkness skills have up to a 100% chance to generate 10 additional essence. It does roll between 7 and 10 against frozen targets. So the entire goal of this thing is to go around, having all of these chill effects and freezing effects. Now you can combine this pretty well with other types of chill effects. Penitent Greaves is a good choice. I don't have them on right this second, but that's because I'm utilizing the cold mages. The Shadow Mages, which dish out cold damage because they are using the blizzards. So I have all these crazy blizzards going on all the time. And as you can see, it has 4,137 cold damage and continuously chills enemies. And so basically what I'm doing is I'm utilizing multiple ways of chilling and freezing targets to get a lot of my stuff back. Now, the essence generation is actually pretty sweet. And what you'll notice is that when you get into combat with monsters, your darkness skills literally just chill enemies immediately. So even if you're utilizing something like, say for instance, Reap, which is a darkness skill, or Blight, or Sever, or any other darkness skill within the game, I think Blighted Corpse Explosion counts as a darkness skill if you're using this here, because it does say it becomes a darkness skill and instead of exploding releases a vile miasma. So you've got a couple different ways that you could potentially utilize the chills that come from the effect. Chills stack, of course, multiple ways. So when you're attacking targets and you're dishing out multiple chills, you will eventually see the targets start to freeze or just become slowed down in general. And this is honestly really nice. It's a permanent form of crowd control because chills do count as crowd controls, which means that everything is crowd controlled 100% of the time, no matter what. And if you add in any additional chills into the process, you start to get frozen enemies pretty easily. Like, for instance, if I were to go grab Penitent Greaves, which is a good choice, or Frostburns, and add that into the effect as well, I might get more frozen enemies and, more nice effects. I was actually really considering, to be honest, putting Frosties into this particular build because it would just add another layer of freezing effects into everything. And I do believe, yeah, I got several Frosties. Because Frostburns, of course, have the 20 was a 25% lucky hit chance to freeze enemies for 2 seconds, which of course would be even more nice in the process. I'm thinking aspect of shared misery would go really good with this as well, because it would spread the crowd control effect to other monsters, allowing you to end up with more frozen targets. Honestly, I haven't had really much trouble getting monsters to freeze though, especially when I pull everything in. All the blizzards start going on top of the monster all at the same time. I have 5 mages, and then that adds in a total of 5 blizzards going off on a regular basis on all the monsters. It's a pretty decent little chunk of doojanks. Now, the other cool thing is there's a new unique item, which I've actually already done a video on, called the Godslayer's Crown, which pulls in enemies when you freeze an elite monster. So in this particular case, using Bloodless Scream with Godslayer's Crown works out very nicely, because as soon as the monster gets frozen, an elite monster that is, or a boss, which bosses can't be frozen, but it does actually have a stipulation here of damaging a boss. So it pulls in all the monsters and gives you a nice little damage bump in the process, which is really nice. So you get free pull-ins for freezing the monsters, and it just kind of works out really nicely, to help out with the whole freezing darkness thing. Now, because everything that it is a darkness skill freezes, you get a lot of craziness going on. With the Blight, which is an AoE effect, so it hits multiple targets. The Reap hits multiple targets as well. And I'm fairly certain that the mages themselves, because they are shadow mages, although I can't be 100% sure on this, because they are shadow mages and they dish out shadow damage, they may also be counting for this, but I'm not 100% sure. Of course, if you were to go with a full cold build, you could always go with the cold mages instead, and utilize, say, the cold, even more cold in the process, and just have everything freezing, like non-stop. Me particularly, I'm using the Shadow Mages to activate the Shadow Blight key passive, which is part of this, so I'm not going to be switching off the Cold Mages, or the Shadow Mages anytime soon. All in all, Bloodless Scream definitely has made a 180, and it has become a much better item from what it was before. The flavor text says, "My companion swung her odd weapon in a wide arc, and our pursuer stopped short. The look of horror on his face as his body fell to pieces will haunt me forever." The Eben Pages, Canto 2, verse 10. I don't know. 11, actually. Verse 11. So I'm actually building my entire character around this, which I think is pretty cool. But there may even be other ways to get really cool effects like this without having to go through Bloodless Scream. Like I said, things like Frosties, utilizing Penitent Greaves, Cold Mages, the Blizzards. There's tons of additional ways that you can add in chills and freezes into your build. Now, the only downside to this is that because it is a freeze, or it gives you additional damage for monsters being frozen, it doesn't really work against bosses, which is unfortunate, because bosses don't freeze. However, when the boss goes into the staggered state, you do get the times 50 multiplier during the staggered portion, which means you do get a pretty healthy damage bump whenever the monster staggers, which is really nice. Chills are not particularly effective at staggering bosses, by the way, so that is an issue. Freezes, on the other hand, are. So if you can manage to freeze the boss, which I'm assuming still happens behind the scene, even though they're not actually frozen, it counts as a much higher stagger on the stagger bar. In fact, if you'd like to learn a little bit more about how stagger works, I suggest you take a look at my stagger video. I actually have a video where we did some testing on stagger and came to the conclusion on how stagger works and the best way to take advantage of it. So it definitely will give you a little bit of stagger, but it's not going to be like a huge, ridiculous amount. Anyway, as always, I do appreciate you guys and gals watching my videos, even when we're just talking about the Bloodless Scream. And as always, keep watching.